In pretty much every review or retrospective I've seen of Jak II, there's always the same common themes. This game is too hard, it has huge difficulty spikes, and some really frustrating missions, and for a lot of people, it completely ruins what would otherwise be a great game. But I was recently playing through Jak II again, and it got me thinking, is it really that hard? Well, yes and no, let me explain. I think why Jak II is considered so difficult comes down to a complete lack of hand-holding to the player. Jak II's mechanics are either explained to you once and kind of quickly forgotten, or not explained at all and left for you to learn on your own. For example, the Wastelander move, shown to the player towards the start of the game, combines a punch into 3 shots from the blaster. It is more than enough to devastate most enemies. On the other hand, to my memory, it is never really explained that the Vulcan can stun lock enemies. This is something that you just learned throughout experimentation and simply using the different weapons provided. And that's one of the biggest problems I think that Jak II has. You have all of these different weapons, but the game really doesn't teach you when and where to use them. The blaster has great range, the Vulcan has a fast fire rate, and the scattergun is great for close range and hitting multiple enemies. They all have unique strengths. But if you're just using a simple move for everything, obviously some situations are going to feel a lot harder than they probably need to. For the most part, when I see a lot of retrospectives, it's the classic jump, spin, and shoot. This really is a terrible idea. It locks you in the air and makes you an easy target, and most of the time it doesn't even hit all of the enemies on screen. I believe playing like this completely misses the point of Jak II's combat system. Each individual weapon has a distinct purpose, but it only works well when you know when and where to apply it. Any IGN reviewer can jump, spin, and shoot, but when you actually think before approaching a fight and how to use each weapon appropriately, it eases the difficulty and transforms this game into an entertaining challenge rather than a frustrating chore. Another thing that is rarely talked about in reviews is the minimap. It's something that the game never really teaches you to use properly outside of basic navigation, but once you understand where enemies are on the radar, you don't always have to physically turn the camera around. Because of the game's auto-aim, you can point Jak in the general direction of an enemy on the minimap, and most of the time can take him out off screen without even turning the camera once. Once you start playing like this, using the game's mechanics to your advantage, the combat becomes a lot more manageable and entertaining, in my opinion. Take one of the most notorious missions in the game, one everybody says is completely unfair: retrieve the seal from water slums. I want to propose that it really isn't all that difficult when you use the tools that you've been given up until this point. The way I play this mission is mainly with the blaster, keeping the Vulcan as a backup. By abusing the fact that the blaster has more range than the guards, we can stand in the optimal position right between the 2 dropships and pick off the guards as they spawn in, before they can even get close. You'll also see me using the Wastelander move when they manage to bridge that gap, and constantly shooting off the screen using the minimap and the auto-aim like we spoke about before. And why am I explaining all of this? Because I jumped into this mission completely cold, selected it from the menu without warming up, and beat it on my very first try. Not because I got lucky, but because I used all of the game's mechanics instead of relying on the one move that works occasionally. Now, I'm not saying this to brag, because obviously I've played this game a lot, but it proves my point. The way you approach these missions makes a massive difference in how hard or difficult they feel. However, I did say that this question is a yes and no answer, because some parts of Jak II are just difficult and unfair, with frustrating design logic behind them. The first example that comes to my mind, and probably the point where everybody realized that this game was not playing around, is blow up ammo at the fortress. You remember this one with the tank? The platforming itself isn't crazy. You're just jumping between platforms and avoiding attacks. But when you throw in the weird camera perspective and the visual filter effects to show that it's coming from the tank's perspective, a really straightforward platforming section becomes infinitely more frustrating than I think it probably needed to be. The other mission that comes to my mind is the race against Errol through Haven City. The race changes the zoomer physics to match the stadium handling, which is a bit jarring, but it's not the end of the world. Just a really odd design decision. On top of that, Errol doesn't have to hit every accelerator ring like you do, despite him explicitly saying that he had to in the cutscene before. If you combine this with the complete RNG of the civilians either diving out of the way and you fly over them, or they will jump in front of your vehicle, it makes one small mistake ruin the entire run. And this is where I think there is a clear line drawn. There is a huge difference between a game being difficult and a game being unforgiving or frustrating. Dying because I made a mechanical mistake to me feels fair. Failing a mission 5 minutes in because a civilian AI randomly jumped in front of you when the 10 behind him didn't, sending you all the way back to the start because there's 0 checkpoints, in my mind is not skill-based difficulty. To me, that's just designed to be frustrating. The reviews back in 2003 complained about this exact same issue, and coming straight off the relaxed, checkpoint generous platforming of Jak and Daxter, the contrast was brutal. So when people say Jak II is hard, I don't think they're wrong. I just think we're confusing difficulty with frustrating or unforgiving game design in certain sections. Jak II isn't demanding top-tier mechanical execution from you. It's demanding that you unlearn bad habits, understand its weapons, and learn how the game actually wants you to play it. Once you take advantage of the mechanics laid out for you, Jak II isn't nearly as hard as its reputation makes it out to be. But that is just my take. Do you agree that it's more unforgiving than actually difficult? Or do you think that this game is pure torture no matter how you play it? Let me know down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.